Hello and welcome back to Recording Principles, Week 4, Monday. Give yourselves a hand if you made it till now and you have everything all caught up. We are rolling into the final week. So, I will be reviewing your radio plays starting tomorrow morning, hopefully. Just remember to have to cover a night shift tomorrow too. Either way, I should have them all done by the end of Wednesday. That's been my goal for that grading. So coming out this week, you got some materials, but no vocabulary, no quiz. So a little PDF on grouping and processing if you like. Our big thing is Mix 4, and it comes in two parts. So you don't have to do a different Mix 4. It's just one Mix 4. It's just two different submissions. So what happens is one submission is going to go directly to us teachers, and we're going to go through and grade that submission, the same as we have been all month. The other one actually comes in as a discussion. I know y'all have seen bits and pieces of ghost of discussions past left over in some of our text from last month. We left this one as a discussion, even though it's a little bit challenging with the new platform. We think it's worth it for y'all to be able to hear the other classmates' work, at least once at the end, so you can compare your mix to others. So, the process is pretty easy. All you have to do is touch up any feedback that we've given you leading up to this point, and add in two time-based effects, reverbs and delays. You can add more, but it's a minimum of two on aux tracks. Remember, on the aux tracks. You have the signal flow water analogy if you're struggling with understanding how these processes work. This may help you. So another flash app like the ones we've had previously. And click the logo. There it goes. So this is the waterfall analogy. So if you think of audio as water flowing, you can see that we have the audio input coming in, and then it stopped, right? It didn't go anywhere. So we turn up the fader. Now we have music going places. So now we have that going straight to the output. But we have these two buses available to us. One bus goes to delay, one to a reverb. Right? We have a I can turn off everything. So basically what you see is how the signal flows in splits. So it splits off to the bus, goes to the aux. On the aux, it finds a new plugin or process affecting it. All right. So let's just, any questions before we get into Mix 4? Kind of dive in here. All right, we've got a question. I want some of you to help answer this. The question is, why is signal effect on the aux track better than the source track? First of all, I'll give you the disclaimer that we are speaking about this only for time-based effects. Delays, reverbs, things that are actually taking the sound and changing the timing of the sound and then putting it back in. count my volumes low. I think I'm coming in about normal here. So I think you'd have to turn up from your end. I think I'll have to keep this setting here. We use reverbs and delays in the same way. So we covered it back in week 2 with the RPR immersive, the very last track. And then we covered it at the end of last week with the radio play. Jaron, yes, you can. Oh, that's all right. Logic will come in louder, Sam. No worries. All right, so getting to the question, some answers coming in keeps you from permanently destroying the track. That's something. Um, it's certainly non-destructive. When you put the effect on the track instead of a bus, you have no control over its gain, independent of the track. And another person said so it can be controlled easily. So we're actually going to do this today. Hopefully some of your questions are answered as we go through it. Part of the answer to using it on the sins is to deal with automation and advanced stuff. We don't technically cover automation here, although I do show it as kind of a bonus thing for you to see. It's not a requirement of this course, but some things will make more sense as you go forward. The main thing is that we can share the processes, which may not mean much to you all in the digital age because you feel like you can just keep slapping plugins on. But there's a different sound to a bunch of different plugins that are the same, trying to do the same thing, and one plugin, one algorithm working. So it can help things sound cleaner. It can help things sound more like they're in the same place together. There are a number of reasons. So let's just look at it. Let's get started. Let's do it. So mix 4. First thing you're going to do is make sure that you have met all the requirements of mixes 1 through 3. Check all your feedback. Make sure you've done everything. Should look something like this. Output always stays at unity. We need to group. So mix 4 requires things to be in groups. So let's go ahead and start off grouping things. Remember to group things, you need to be in your main window, this sort of edit view up here. I'm going to shrink these down. I've gone over this a few times this month, so you should have this, the grouping. So to group, going to highlight. So from drums, on highlight all the way down to the blocks. Control click in this gray area. Create track stack. Summing stack. I'm going to repeat this for the keys guitar and then for the Vox. I'll let the bass sit out on its own. It doesn't need a group. Bass has no friends. Some people put the bass in the drum group. A lot of people just leave it on its own group. It depends on what you're trying to do. One more for the vocals. Also, in a larger session, you might have the backing vocals and lead vocals in different groups. We're not going to worry about it with this. It's not a big enough session to worry about. But, if you had 80 stacks of backing vocals, it might make sense to have them in their own group. So you can just fold them up out of the way when you're done with them. All right, so we got our track stacks made. Go back to our mixer view. So Samuel, no idea why. It must have been something peculiar in your settings. Either you already had another track stack that was included in there, or you had some peculiar settings in your track that couldn't be stacked for some reason. Off my head, I don't have an answer for you though. All right, so we've almost finished our mix, right? We have fader and pan, setting our space. We've compressed to help stabilize or sculpt our sounds. We've used gating to help clean things up. We've used EQ to help sculpt and clean up our sounds. So we're almost ready. We're missing one key ingredient. What are we missing? Jaron, yes. Don't go overboard. No, we're not going to be doing any limiting here. Good guess, though. No mastering. No mastering at all. So we're missing something before the mastering. Jaron, you've answered it. I was hoping some other people would chime in with you. So what are we missing? We're missing the space. The space that we're in. Where's our band playing? Where is this song happening? Is this an arena? Is it a garage? Is it a concert hall? Is it a nightclub? Is it a cafeteria? You know, is this somebody's talent show? Where does this exist? Where do we exist? Where's our band hanging out? Mitchell, it means please continue forward. It means you are doing great. Don't think too hard. If you actually got a compliment, it means you're doing exceptionally well. All right. So where's our band going to be? Somebody tell me. Where's the place? What kind of setting do we want? All right. Got a stage in a large area, concert hall, studio, live concert, basement, bars, amphitheater, studio. All right. So we're kind of all over the place. um, let's try to go for a small hall. That'll be somewhere between a hall and a studio sort of sound. Um, so I'll try to imagine a small concert venue. Sonically treated a little bit, giving it more of a studio sound. So let's see what we come up with. I'm going to start off by putting this on my lead vocal. So follow along with me here or watch carefully the way we make an aux. We've covered this a couple times before in this class, but one more time for all the points. You take the track that you want to put the send from, use the send drop down. You pick a bus that's not in use. You have to pick one not in use. If you pick one that's been used for something else, it's going to mess everything up for you. So find a bus that's not in use, in this case bus 4. When you create that, what's going to pop up is you're going to have a send to bus 4 here. You're going to have a knob controlling the level, how much gets sent to bus 4. Over here, it's going to create an aux track. The input to that aux track will be bus 4. So sound goes from this knob all the way over to this and down this channel. So I'm going to put a reverb over here. I can't remember which one's which. Let's try the platinum verb. I'm going to put it in stereo too. Once I create it, it's too late before I click it, but luckily with Logic, I can do it as an afterthought. Want to go crazy, want to go back to Pro Tools and have to think about this ahead of time again. So if I want this to be stereo, all I have to do is click right up here on the circle on top of the track, and Logic's going to make it stereo for me. Voila. Perfect. So things to remember is when you have an effect on an aux track, it means that you already have the dry going somewhere. This is the dry signal. We call this the dry. Anything that doesn't have reverb and delay, time-based effects on it, going out to the output, we call the dry signal. So the wet signal is just going to be over here. So we're going to make sure that these are set to be 100% wet. So the output, wet all the way up, dry all the way down, 100% wet. From here, if we're using the platinum verb, then we can just dial in our settings. There's a little bit of pre-delay. This is how long before your first bit of reverb starts coming back to your ears. It can make a space seem larger. It can also give you a little more intelligibility around your words to have a little bit of pre-delay in there. Room shape. While I'm very rarely in rooms that have odd numbers of walls, I've discovered they sound really cool in this Logic reverb to have like 3, 5. These are really cool sounding reverbs with odd walls. So let's try one. Let's start seeing how it sounds. Yeah. You hear it right already? So if I turn all this down, no reverb right, crank it up. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah. And once again, this stuff's kind of like a EQ. There's a little bit of low frequency compression there too. Yeah, wanna give, gotta so you can do this kind of affect the texture, the sound, the density. Yeah, wanna give, make it sound like that harder or softer walls. Yeah, wanna give. Gotta give. And then the reverb time is going to be just how long it rings out. Wanna give. Gotta give. Yeah. Wanna give. Gotta give. It's like I'm in a submarine or something, right? Yeah. Kind of cool, but not practical. Gotta give. Yeah. Wanna give. Gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, 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 gotta give. You can try different shapes too. Yeah, wanna give. Gotta give. See how boring that 4-sided room is after that other one? Wanna give. Gotta give. Yeah. Wanna give. Gotta give. I'm liking this 3-sided one. Wanna give. Gotta give. Yeah. Wanna give. Gotta give. So I'm not going to grade you on the complexity of your space or how it sounds. I just want you to get involved with it a little bit and mess with it. That's why you're required to have a at least one of these that has a custom parameters. While it doesn't really make sense to use presets on things like gates, compressors, EQ, unless just like a standard roll off, like 100 hertz roll off or something. For the most part, all of those things, they are designed to work on the signal coming at them, dependent on that signal. So if whatever signal you're sending it changes or your recording source is different, then you will need different settings. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to use presets with those sorts of things, or even start with presets on those sorts of things usually. Especially if you know how to work them, like you all do now. But with a sonic space, presets can make sense. No matter what you send to it, it's going to put anything you send into that space. So sometimes it makes sense. All right, so this is going to be our room 1. This will be our club/hall. Oh, here comes the thunder. All right, so that's going to give us a sense of space. 99% of the time with reverb, we are giving it a sense of space. And something to remember is the more you add, the deeper a sound is going to sound like in your mix. Let's give you an example. I'll keep it on this vocal. Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly. Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give. As you can hear, it starts getting washed out and starts going further back in the mix because it's getting washed out with its reverb. So you don't want to put too much, especially on a lead sound. You don't want to wash it out. There's a different kind of reverb. It's called a plate. It's a very short reverb. It's basically based on having a piece of sheet metal go boom, like a saw. The original plates were just about a 3 by 4 foot sheet of sheet metal with transducers and pickups on them. Very big, very bulky. They had to be completely contained from any movement in air or vibrations. Very hard to to find a place for one and keep up with them. So you don't see them a lot anymore. Full Sail actually owns one. It hasn't been hooked up in years. I found it one day. It was kind of knocked over and sad to see, really, all the wires cut out of it. But it still lives in the roof because nobody can get it out. I like them. I wish we'd hook ours back up. But so we have a digital version of that, same thing that we actually use in the big studios. Just use digital versions these days. So let's going to do one of these two. It's called a plate. With a plate, it's going to be different than trying to make a room. It doesn't really make a room. It doesn't do anything like that. But what it does do is it makes things sound a little thicker. It stays within the Haas zone. You can't recognize it as a different sound usually. It just kind of thickens up the sound. So with a plate, if you have a small enough plate and you use it right, it won't make something sound deeper in the mix. It'll make it sound thicker and larger than life. Trying to remember what I was listening to. I mean, there's many, many examples, but if you're ever in like a big studio, I say this because they usually have the best sound systems to hear this from. Sometimes theaters and stuff too, but where you hear and it sounds like it's just this giant head talking at you. It's almost like Wizard of Oz like, where like not only is it in front, it's very much present, but it seems larger than life, just bigger, taking up more space. A lot of times a plate reverb can give you that sort of effect. So I'm going to put on a plate. So right now I've made my aux to bus 5. I have bus 5 over here, feeding aux 5. Go over here and put on a different kind of reverb this time. Go to Reverb, Space Designer. Say Convolution Reverb. You don't have to know much about that yet. Just have to know that it models specific spaces. So what they do is they record how each frequency responds. They set a sample rate and a bit depth, and they record each frequency's response in a space to recreate the sound of a space. So maybe it's, what does seat 22 at Carnegie Hall sound like? They mapped it. Okay, so it's these others are just kind of computer algorithms. They're just guesses. They're just a thing to trick your brain into thinking it's close to something. They're usually not all that close, but it turns out our brain can be tricked pretty easily. These are different. These are models. So everything in the Space Designer is a model. But I'll go to this plate reverbs. It's a blue plate. I wonder if I can find a gold plate somewhere. There we are. Golden plate. Golden plate's just a classic. I believe Lexicon started it. But you see them modeled all over. It's just a model of a plate. So it's just a digital model of the plate reverb. And it's going to kind of thicken up the sound. So I'll let you hear it. Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly. Yeah. Wanna thanks and praise, now I've turned it way up so you can hear it, but you'll notice. Yeah. Wanna give, gotta give. Yeah. So with that, to me, it just sounds more like it has a halo around it. It doesn't really sound like a specific space. I don't feel like I'm in a room with it or anything like that. I just feel like a little bit of halo around it. And this has been used in recordings for decades now. So um, it's not weird to do in any way. It's been done so much it's going to sound normal. So I've got my club hall. I've got my plate. Now, if I want to make, how are we doing? Do you want me to make it more complex, or you want me to stop here at the basics? Mitchell, I have no idea. That sounds insane to me. Unless jazz, maybe. Um, you should be able to hear the reverb on your end. It just may not be very clear due to the degradation of audio through GoToMeeting. So you'll hear it more when you actually do it yourself. All right, all right. Everybody's asked me to make it more complex. Good class. Let's do it. All right, so right now this is enough. Once we built this out, we just had these two effects, and then we would start putting them on things. We're going to hold off one moment. We're going to make things off a little more complex, and we'll start adding them all in. So I want to add more complexity to what I'm going to use with my bus 4 here, which is already my club hall. I want to make a more complex club hall sound. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back up where I can hear it.
Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give.
So we're going to create another one,
Wanna
bus
give,
6, because it's unused.
gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta
Reverb.
give.
I'll do another space designer
Yeah,
for fun.
wanna give, gotta give. Yeah, wanna give,
Go ahead
gotta
and click on
give.
that, make this one stereo.
Yeah, wanna give, gotta
For this one, I'm just going to go
give.
through and search the presets, all right?
Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. 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 Yeah, wanna give,
Oh, the small concert hall. That's
gotta
what we said we wanted.
give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah,
That's got a nice sound to
wanna
it.
give, gotta give. Yeah,
Small.
wanna give,
Oh.
gotta give. Yeah.
All right. So riddle me this: in a standard room, how many sides do you get reflections off of? Maybe not too bad, Steven, but you might want to check the archive. Okay. All right. Got some answers here. People are saying 4, 4, 6, 6, 4, 2, 5. A lot of times 6, right? Most rooms are 4 walls. So you got the 4, then you have a ceiling and a floor. You're going to learn that working with this stuff is as much imagination as anything else. Once you learn how to use the tools, from there you have to be able to imagine the thing to make it. If you can imagine the space, you can keep dialing in the sounds to make it work with your brain. It's all psychoacoustics. Nobody really knows exactly how it's going to work. But I'm going to try to work with the club hall and the small hall to create one complex space that maybe has so maybe I've got 4 walls, a floor, but maybe I have a vaulted ceiling and then reflections coming from a high ceiling. Anybody that's ever been in a tall room, you know it sounds different than short ceilings. If not, wait till you go house shopping. Your real estate agent will tell you about it. Adds the value of your home. Also adds to your heating and cooling expenses.
Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah, wanna give, gotta give. Yeah.
And if you folks are anything like me, after you get it all dialed in, you're going to have to let your ears rest and go back and turn it all back down. I, as well as many others, have a habit of putting a little too much reverb on at the start.
Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly. Yeah.
You could even do stuff like EQ the reverb. I don't want to confuse anybody too much, but I can go in here after the fact and add in a channel EQ. So use it on that. Use this to roll off some of the.
Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly. Yeah.
And now I've recontoured my EQ to sound a little brighter in the upper mids, but take away some of the high-end reflections. Just because I like that sound. I'll turn it up so you can hear more.
Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly. Yeah.
All right. Like that. So that's another part of putting the time-based effect on the aux track. It means I can EQ this without at all taking away anything from my original signal. This lead vocal is still going straight through this track, right to the output. I didn't take away anything away from my lead vocal by doing this. All I did is carve out the reverb space to make the actual space sound different, but not the original sound. So it's just part of the advantage to using aux tracks. Now the rest of it is that I can start putting these on all these other tracks that I want to use them on and start dialing it in like a console. It's 4. Something to note here is we are not sending to time-based effects from the groups. When you do that, you make a mess. You're sending all those different tracks to hit these algorithms at once, and it's basically going to spit out white noise at you. It's just going to make it very noisy and very messy. You want to be able to control specifically each and every sound, how exactly you want them to sound. I would have normally put the plate at the end, just kept it out of the way of my other two. We just kind of added that last effect as an afterthought to make our space more complex. Now this part, you can think of it as hard or easy. Some engineers just have a heck of a time with this sort of thing. Some just don't like to let go and do it by ear. Some are going to take out notes. They're going to calculate things. They're going to calculate all their times. They're going to calculate their pre-delay. They're going to calculate how long each thing lasts off based on the tempo of the song and all sorts of work. You're usually going to get as good or better results if you use your ear, because if it sounds good, it is good, right? The only problem is right now you're still training your ear, But the good news is you don't have to worry. As long as you set things up all right. If you got these things set up all right and you've turned some of these things up to where you can hear them, you're good. Okay, we may tell you, hey, that's too much reverb, or hey, you could have used some more, or something like that. But we're not going to count off for just overdoing it or something like that as long as it's set up correctly. So now's your time to experiment and start using your ears and start gaining trust in your ears. That's part of being at school. And if you're way off base, we'll tell you. If not, then just keep trucking along, and you'll get better at hearing. So let's get all found a good loop area. Stretch this out some. So I'm gonna concentrate on my lead vocal first, because that's my money, right? Lead vocalist, probably paying the bills. I'll make them sound the best. Remember, these big reverbs make the lead vocalist sound further away. This plate will help thicken it up a little bit. So on the harmonies and backing vocals, like the backing vocals, I can add a lot of reverb to them, right? Because I want them far away in the mix. I don't want them to wash out anything. So sometimes there's a very specific right and wrong to this. Sometimes there's not. I chose using a reggae track for this month because it gives you a lot of options. Reggae music traditionally has gone anywhere from very traditional, sounds like you're in the living room with the players, to sounding like you're going through outer space in a dub mix. So it is not inappropriate to go really far out there with reggae. It's also not inappropriate to not, right? So had we been doing jazz, it would be very inappropriate to add a bunch of artificial reverb everywhere, right? Usually the jazz ensemble, the people that listen to that sort of thing, that listening audience wants a pristine recording. That's the kind of people that listen to that, and the people that play it usually also want that. It kind of goes with the genre. Country music might kind of be the same thing. Maybe you want it to sound like you're in a log cabin, but you want it to sound realistically so. You don't want a listener to be like, hey, that's some really cool reverb they used. You want them to have no idea, right? You want them to just feel like they're in a space and to never perceive what you did, except in some genres. Reggae, hip-hop, electronic music, all of those you can get away with being very apparent with what you do and kind of just go crazy with it. So it's your choice here. You can be, you can try to do it in a very traditional, realistic way and make it so that it's very hard to tell that you've added any artificial reverb. Or you can really push it up. A little bit of plate to them to even them out. Alright, the keys I want some space on. I really like the sound of this small hall that we have there. So I'm going to use a lot of it. A moment, folks. I got to pull up my audio MIDI so I can get a little more. It's very hard for me to work on reverb at such low volumes of phones. I may be way overdoing it. Turn my cans up a bit. Oh yeah, I was overdoing it. When I pause, you could hear the tail. Right, so that's a good way to listen to it. You just hit play, then hit pause real quick and listen to it trail out. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Don't want any plate on that.
And I stay fly, flying away, oh yeah. Hey, yeah. Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay.
It's never too late to do any adjustments. If you hear something masking something else, something's too loud, don't be afraid to turn it down. You know, if we've been telling you have a good mix, then I wouldn't suggest moving anything by more than a couple dB here and there because you're already in the ballpark really nicely, or we would have probably, been saying something about it. But you can make small changes. Remember, if your mid sides are not doing you any favors, if it's sounding worse with them, you can cut them out. You don't have to use them. Just because they're there doesn't mean they have to be used. Okay. Now, drums. There's a trick to the drums. I'll show you. Let me check the questions real quick. Daniel, have we answered your question yet about not putting the effects in the same aux? I didn't answer it directly, but I kind of feel like maybe the answer has unveiled itself. Adding effective group is not a good idea, generally. There are always exceptions to the rules. Gerald, please don't for this time. That's considered a modulated effect, and we're just not covering those in this class. You're going to get those, and I think you get those next month. So we're just going to ignore that for now. We're doing so because we treat them different than time-based effects. And time-based effects kind of the end of this class. So modulated effects, we'll have to wait till you move forward. All right. So there's a trick to the drums I'll show you. It doesn't always work. It's not always the best trick, but it's often a good trick. And it got used way, way too much in the 80s, but still a pretty good trick. So if I were to take all these drums and send it to these reverbs, it's going to be a mess. I would demonstrate it and show you, but I've done it before, and whatever reason, I think people just like stop the video, pause it, and copy what I did, and they all copied the thing that I showed them what not to do. So I've learned not to show a what not to do on the video. Sorry. I would like to show you what not to do, but what not to do is don't put sends from your drum group. So what you can do, though, is you can trick the brain. Remember, I told you this reverb is all about psychoacoustics. It's all about just tricking the brain and using your imagination to create a space. So I can take just my snare, either top, or bottom. The snare reproduces sound from about 200 hertz all the way to the top of the hearing range. So it's pretty much our entire hearing range minus some low frequencies. So it makes it, it fills up the entire sonic space. So you have to be careful with how much space is taken up. But usually in a song like this, the snare will be played twice per bar on the 2 and the 4. 1, 3. So it just plays twice per bar. It's not going to get in the way of everything, like the hi-hats, the overheads. They're playing like 16th notes and all sorts of things. You're going to create a mess very quick. So if you just put the snare in a space, it covers so much frequency range that it almost covers the frequency range of the entire drum kit. Your brain will get tricked into thinking everything's in that space. So I'm going to set up bus 4, bus 6. We might even try the plate. If it sounds good, we'll use it. If not, we won't. I intended it just for the vocals, but if it sounds good, we'll use it. We'll put it up here.
Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give. Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give. And I stay fly, flying away. Oh yeah. Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly, flying away.
Remember, your mid and side left are actually the real reverb of the room that the drums were recorded in. This is the actual room mic of the drums, so
Wanna thanks and praise, gotta give,
you can bring that up to actually.
stay fly, flying away. Oh yeah.
With these, you want to do them where you can just barely hear them, though. Obviously, it's way too much.
Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly, flying away. Oh yeah. Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly, flying away. Oh yeah.
What I would normally do at this point would be give myself about a 15-minute listening break, come back in, and most likely I would find the need to pull down a lot of these reverbs after I let my ears rest. Not much, but just a little bit here and there. Diana, you can bookmark them. You can't actually save them. You go to YouTube and bookmark them to your account, though. I won't actually actively go back and delete them. I'm not going to make the snare stereo. I'm not even sure why you would think to do that. Daniel, exactly. Each effect will get its own aux, so you can control it separately. You can get different blends. So, like you can see here, each one of these vocals use the same 3 effects, but they use them in different blends. So each one has a different sonic characteristic because I blended them differently. Remember, you're only required to use 2, so I went 1 overboard. You can do more if you want, but requirements are 2. We did 3 here. Oh, God. I got another question about grouping. All right, Scott, I'm going to try for you, but I already grouped everything here. I'm about out of things to group. I'm not sure what else to go over. I've been over it, I think, a dozen times this month. For whatever reason, it's been a big question. So it's not just you. I'm not picking on you, Scott. It's been a big question this month on the grouping. How can you? I got another grouping question. How can you add a track to summing side? You'll have to drag it in. Let's see how this works. I don't do that much. I do it right the first time. Measure twice, cut once. That's the rule, right? I think from the, I'm not sure you can do it from this window. You probably have to do it from the edit window like everything else. So, say I wanted the bass of my drum group. And just drag it up into the group. I'm going to check my track. Now it's changed my output to the bus. So it automatically put it in there. So you can drag into the group. You should also be able to drag right back out of the group. That may be more complex, though. And we're back out. And its output is back to stereo out. Very good. Put it back in the right order. So you can drag in and out of the group from this window. To make the group, I'll put the bass in a group one more time to show you how to make the group. In this case, there's going to be one item in the group because we only have one item left. So you select all the tracks you want to be in the group from this edit window. You hold shift to select multiple tracks if you want. But for this time, we just have the one. So highlight what you want in the group, control click into the gray area. You get the drop down, create track stack, summing stack. You hit create, and that's it. You're done. Logic does the rest for you. That may be why people are confused. Maybe you came from a different platform where you had to do a lot more, and it's hard to accept that Logic does all these steps for you that you might have had to do manually in another platform. You highlight and control click, and then you select track stack. The grouping definitely saves. Everything saves when you close and open. You've missaved your project or something if it's not there. You've either opened the wrong project back up or something else. The grouping does save with the project. All right. So the trick with the drums was simply not to send all the drums to the reverb. It's just taking the snare and sending it out and trying to get away with just using the snare. Sometimes the toms can sound really cool through some reverb. I didn't spend much time with toms on this because they're not played much, but they can certainly sound very cool with a lot of reverb on them, especially if you've got them well gated, everything's ready to go. If they're not cleaned up well, you're going to make a mess of them by adding reverb. But if you've got them all cleaned up, they're going to sound really cool if they hit some reverb. I don't do this a lot, and it depends on the genre. Sometimes you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want your tom fills exploding, but a lot of times you do, right? It's a big rock and roll kind of feel. Put my tom fill. See how this sounds.
Yes, I do. Every day.
So that's good. I'm happy with that. This would be Jaron, yes, I have. So this will be a completed for your requirements of the actual project. So now you have to worry about the submission, right? Let's take a look at the submission. So we added at least 2 aux tracks with time-based effects. We added 3, right? Summing stacks, done. No processing on the output track. This track has to stay open. We're not doing mastering in here. Nothing there. Output track, empty. Submit the entire Logic session. This time, even with the audio files, okay? This is not because we need to do it. It's just so that you learn how to do it and you're accustomed to doing it. If you had a client on the other end that needed your entire session, you would have to have it with the audio files. We've been doing it all month because we sent the session to you originally. As instructors, we all had the folder of audio files, so we could just save our folder. We still could with this submission, but what we're doing this time is pretending that we don't have the audio. We've never seen this before. You recorded this session, you're sending it back to us, and we have to have everything. So this time you're going to send the entire session back to us. All right, so the easiest way to send the entire session is a little bit different than what we've been doing. Just go in, save as. Remember, it's going to be called Mix 4. And the easiest way to do it when you're saving everything is just do the package, make sure all these things are checked, just like this, hit save, and then you upload the actual package. So it's a little bit simpler than before, actually. It's a bigger file, but you don't have to go through and open up the folder and find the one session file and pull it loose. You can just take the whole thing now with the audio files. It'll be about 100 megabytes. It's going to take a little while to upload. I think it's 100.3 megabytes total. And spend time, make sure you take time for that to upload. It's going to take about 10 times longer than your MP3s have taken to upload. All right, down here, hang in there. You're not done yet. You have to do the part 2 post, okay? So we just need the package here. We just need everything that you have. We're going to open it up. We're going to play your project. We're going to try anything that we'd suggest to you and see if it actually works. Send it back. And then for your Mix 4 Part 2, this is a discussion post. So you've heard rumors of them this month. This is the first one you actually have had to do. So you're going to make a post. Your post needs to contain 3 uploads. These uploads are going to be your Mix 1 MP3. So your Bounce and Mix 1, please upload that. Your Mix 4 MP3, that's the one you just did. So once you've done this, bounce out. Bounce your MP3. And then a screenshot of your mix window. This is just so your classmates can see what you did, right? So same as we've been doing all month. You want the mix window up. You want this to say tracks. You want that button there clicked, which means narrow mix view. Puts a lot of it all in one window. And as much of this you can fit on your screenshot. If you need to scroll left to right and have 2 screenshots, that's fine. It can be two screenshots. So basically this is just so give your classmates what you would want to be able to see and what you'd want to see from them to be able to understand their mix. So that way somebody can listen to your mix, they can look at the screenshot and see what you did. And they can be like, oh, wow, that bass sounds really cool. And they go look at your screenshot and like, oh, yeah, look at that EQ. He really did a good job EQing that. And then, he added some compression and, blah, blah, whatever. You want to be able to see a little bit about what you did. So that's going to be your post. It's going to be to upload all your stuff. So we want to get where you started, your Mix 1, your fader pan mix, your final mix. That way we can see the progress you made across the month. If you didn't bounce your Mix 1, go back to your Mix 1 and bounce it. If all else fails, you can bypass all these things and bounce it, right? I don't want to get anybody confused, but you can just highlight all. And just turn things off that weren't part of Mix 1. Right? You just turn everything off. And now we're back at Mix 1. Well, those 2 things. So if you don't have a bounce to your Mix 1, the way to get back to your Mix 1 is just turn everything off, right? And then bounce it. Power it all back up. So please don't lose points in the submission. I know it can be confusing. Just follow the directions step by step. Now, responding. You have to respond to 2 of your classmates. It's worth a lot of points. A lot of points. Don't get an F because you didn't respond. And it's just rude for you not to respond. So pick a couple of your classmates, at least 2, and respond with the following. You're going to listen to their mixes. You're going to find something interesting and ask how they did it. How did you make the bass so fat? How did you make the snare crack so hard? How did you make the guitar sound like whatever? How did you make the keys sound like angels crying? I don't care. Find something you found interesting and ask them how they made it happen. There's bound to be something out of all of. If you're not hearing something, listen closer. Also suggest something they could do different. Suggest something they could do to improve their mix. What would you do if that was your mix to make it better? And let them know. Example, try panning the keys to the right and bringing down the level 3 dB. Maybe you think the keys are masking the vocal. They shouldn't be in the center and they should come down a little bit so that you can hear the vocal more clear. Things like that, you know. The same sort of feedback that you would want to get, try to give it. Don't be defensive. Remember, we are requiring other students to suggest changes to you. It's not even their choice. They have to suggest a change. Don't get defensive. Part of this learning process is learning to take criticism as well as give it. So be constructive in the criticism you give. Don't say, hey, this sucks. You did a bad job. That's not constructive at all, right? If you're going to say it sucks, you better have a list of reasons why it sucks, very detailed for that person. So I would avoid using the term sucks at all, you know, being a professional. So there's that part. Do not get defensive in the feedback process. All right. Any questions on that? Yes, you bounce the entire thing to the MP3 for part 2. For part 1, you send the project. For part 2, you give a bounce. I appreciate that, Gerald. There's more fun ahead, I assure you. I got a question. How do you remove the bus input from a channel? The inputs are all right up here. To change any input, all you do is drop down the input and change it to whatever input you want it. Same with the outputs. You shouldn't need to do that unless you've already made a mistake. Hopefully you've been following the instructions step by step and don't have to fight logic over any mistakes. For Mix 4 Part 1, you send the session. For Mix 4 Part 2, you send the bounce file, the MP3. Nathan, I've got an email waiting for you. I've not been able to get that project. I have no idea why it's as large as it is. I've been trying to get it to successfully download and open for me so I could find out why it's so big so I could let you know what you did wrong. Something's been done wrong. I'd appreciate if you could go back through the submission, the instructions, and review that. Or maybe just send me a screenshot in the MP3, and I'll try to figure out where the issue is. The big file, though, I could not. Every time I've downloaded it, it's errored out on me. So thanks for asking that now. I've got you my notepad to email in the morning. But since you're here, perfect. Scott, I'm real concerned that you have bus inputs on Tom's Read from the Blocks. I don't know how you did that, but the same thing, just what I showed you just a moment ago. All you do, anytime you can highlight your tracks and do more than one track at once. So if I wanted from Tom 1 all the way to the blocks to be input 1, I just highlight them all. I select the input. I go to the drop down. Input 1. Now everything highlighted will be turned to input 1. Or you can use no input and go no input. James, the last one should be a discussion post. I honestly don't know how it looks on the student side. Let's see. All I can see is this. We're actually all kind of standing by curious to see what happens. Submit wherever you can. If it tells you to right there, try to submit it. If you have to submit into the feedback to get stuff up there, use that. I think you put it all in the completion. Your 3 uploads, your MP3s, and your screenshot there. And then you should be able to reply to your other students here. They they did some serious damage to the way the discussions work in this new revision, mostly without telling us they did it. So, and as of now, we do not know, or at least I do not know how it's going to look from the student end because it's our first one to submit. Uh, Fingers crossed that it works out right. If not, we'll make it work somehow. James, this one should have a discussion. The other ones this month did not. But Mix 4 Part 2 should have, this is an actual discussion post with feedback. It should have a place where you can see your classmates and download their projects and review them. We're going to find out how it looks when you do it. All right, so Part 1 due Tuesday. Part 2 due Thursday. So that gives a little time to I'm hoping that you all will go ahead and post your discussion on Tuesday when you finish your part 1, and that way if there's something wrong with the discussions, you can let us know and we can get ahead of that and hopefully have it fixed before the due date on Thursday if there's an issue. Hopefully no issue. So how are we doing? You all want a bonus or are we done? I can show you a delay throw. It's not required. But we've been at this over an hour. We can call it a day as well. I don't want to go overboard and confuse anybody. Bonus, bonus, bonus. All right. Everybody wants their money's worth. Let's do it. So a delay throw. I'm going to show you, this is a little bit complex here because this session is not mapped to tempo. So this means that I'm going to have to map my delay by ear, which can be challenging for some people. I don't think it's as hard as you have to make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a bus from my snare to anything that's open. I have bus 8 open. I'm going to use it. I'm using the snare because the snare has very good timing. Generally, the snare is very precise in its time. The whole rhythm of the track has to drive around it. Also, it's usually only played twice per bar, as I mentioned before, meaning it has a lot of space between hits and a consistent amount of space between hits, making it easy to mentally map out. So you see, there's my snare. There it is playing, 2 beats per track. All that space in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play out with the delay, and I'm just going to listen for the delay to go out in some sort of even time between these notes. I'm not actually going to use this delay on the snare. It would sound awful. It would ruin the track. But I'm using the snare to get the timing of my delay, and then I'm going to take that and I'm going to use it as a delay throw. So over here on bus 8, I need a delay. Just use the stereo delay just because it's simple. All right, so a couple of processes I'm going to do real quick to get started. I'm going to take off the tempo sync. Why? Because my session's not in tempo, right? I already told you that. The Logic thinks it's going 120 BPM. It is not mapped to that. You're going to sound like shoes in a dryer if you try to leave that. So tempo sync off. I'm going to turn these both all the way down so they read the same. And I'm going to turn on the stereo link This is just so my knobs work together. Okay, so I just set the knobs to the same thing and link them. If I didn't have them set the same, they'd stay linked, but to different numbers. So if I link them like that, then they're always going to be offset. So what I want, so stereo link. All right. Feedback, put around 60%. This is how much of the delay goes back into itself. And then from here, I'm going to have to use my ears and listen. So let's start playing in here. We're going to do, I'll just solo the snare here. So I have to listen to everything else play. There's our delay starting, all right? It's coming in a little bit late. There's a little bit of bleed coming in from something I was hearing there. So I'm kind of looking for like 8 counts in between. Give me a good 16 note pattern. You can speed up or slow it down. You can get to triplets. Basically what you're listening for is whenever the next snare hits, if it sounds like it's hitting at a good time with a delay, if you hear the snare hit, then you hear the delays. Then you know you got good time. Or even if it's doesn't matter how many delays are in there, as long as the sequence rolls back around in what feels like a musical timing. It can be triplets, it can be quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. If it feels musical to you, it's going to work, right? Most likely. And then from there, you're just trying to figure out, do you want a triplet? Do you want a long delay? Do you want a short delay? They're getting way too long. I kind of like the shorter ones. Real fast. That's pretty close. I'm going to go with that. It's musically related time. Sounds all right. Right? But I don't want it on the snare. That's going to sound bad. It's going to sound like chaos. I mean, here I can unsolo it. You'll hear it.
Yeah, wanna thanks and praise, gotta give, and I stay fly, flying away, oh yeah, yeah.
All right, so how awful would that be, right? We don't want that. Especially since the timing's not dead on. You certainly don't want that. If you're going to lay a percussion like that, you're going to need to be really, really, really spot on because you're going to sound like you're adding to the percussion arrangement, not just having some echo. And we take that away. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that delay to our lead vocal instead, okay? So I only used that whole setup, that whole process was done just to get my timing down by ear because it's easier to get the timing on the snare than the vocal. Just a little trick for getting timing. So now I'm going to put back to bus 8, it's my delay on my lead vocal. I'm going to turn off my loop. I assume it's still working. I don't see my bus 8 yet. There it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'll start this from the beginning. I'm going to set this into touch. And then when I want a delay throw, I'm just going to turn the knob up. So that throws on our lead vocal, not on our group. I'm just going to try to drag the track out a little bit so you can see it as we play. All right. So whenever I think it's going to sound cool, I'm just going to turn up the bus 8 knob with it in touch. And that's going to write our automation.
There's no place I'd rather be than in the midst of His majesty. Feel the power in my soul. This power worth much more than gold. I let Jah take control. Let the love unfold. Let the love unfold. Yeah, give thanks and praises, people. Yes, I do every day.
All right. Now that I've recorded what I want, put it back in read. You can even edit your performance. Look at these little click points. Volume, main. You can find your automation lane, and it'll show you what you recorded. There's my automation. Went way too high on it. So I just kind of bring them down. You don't really have to go back and do any editing like this. I'm tidying up. The reason mine looks so bad is because I had got some processor lag going on, which makes my knob movements and my mouse movements very jerky. Kind of difficult to even do stuff like this.
Let the love unfold. Yeah.
All right, so that's cool. Cool little delay throw. So that's a delay throw. That's another reason to put it on aux. Without the aux, we could never do a throw, right? We could turn the delay on and off, but it would just cut off. It wouldn't trail out when we were done. A delay throw can only be done by setting up with the aux tracks like that. And they're a lot of fun. They're used a lot. You'll start noticing them in pop music. Sometimes they're used to fill a space. Maybe the artist ran out of words, and you just had to fill in a couple spaces for them. There you go. Oh, yes, good question. Got a question. Will there be a lecture on Thursday? Yes, there will. And it's not technically required in any sort of way because all your graded projects will be due, right? Your last project's due Thursday. So that's actually set up intentionally. Thursday is an entire day of bonus, basically. I'll show you some using the tools that we've used all month. I'll show you different ways to use them, ways to use them with advanced routing, and ways to use them outside of the way you've been taught for special effect. Why did I wait? Because I didn't want you to try these things and mess up terribly and lose grades on your final mix. So I'm waiting till after it's due. Then I can show you if you want to work with it on your own projects. If not, you will get an in-depth coverage, as you move forward in later classes. But we do touch on some advanced ways to use the tools that we've learned this month in week 4 Thursday. And yes, it will be archived. All right. Everybody seems good with the bonus. I hope I didn't just take anybody too far with that and blow their minds, but I'm sure a handful of you would like to use delay throws in this project or your own. Remember, always set back to read after you automate. Read. It even turns green to let you know it's good. All right. That should cover everything that you need to successfully complete this week, completing this course. You all are dismissed. As always, I will leave the GoToMeeting up as a save out for any last minute questions. So have a great week. Hope to see you all on Thursday.